You're listening to My Inner Teacher with Peter Starius and Krystal Ariel. The answers you seek are within you.
Wow. Julia, I think I reached out to you directly and I started following you, Humanhood, around I want to say 5 years ago on Instagram. I saw one of your videos and I'm not a professional dancer, but I definitely have dancer in me and
He's being extremely modest. You should watch her stuff online. It's pretty incredible.
but I've never been professional. And then I saw your videos and I was like, "Oh my God. You guys move like octopus, moving in the water, changing shapes and just shifting around like butter." And I saw one of the videos of Rudi and I was just like, incredible. I've never seen anything like that. And then so when we started doing this podcast, I was like, we need to talk to Humanhood about what it means to follow your inner teacher, which is like definitely something that both of you are doing. So yeah, I'd love it if you could just share a little bit about how you guys got into this, where it all started.
Great. Maybe I start. Well, I started ballet since I was 3.5 years old, so I was very, very small, very little. Um, and then I trained at the London Contemporary Dance School, and then I worked with very big companies. But then I met Rudy in Birmingham, and I think we both had like a passion for movement, like a genuine passion for movement and discovery and play and curiosity with our body. And that's how humanhood came. It was just like two very curious kids playing around with their body and seeing what how can the body be in this world. And then the word humanhood came through, and it was like, okay, this is more than just a dance company. It is really about a movement of connecting people to their body as a way to reconnect with who we truly are. So that's how it expanded out, and I'm sure Rudy you can share more.
Yeah, I think one thing, when Julia and myself met, I think we just realized that we were both passionate about dance to the point where you get to dance and then that's the most important thing in life. I mean, and really, when we're working with people, I think that's the essence that we're looking for. It's that you're humbled and you're grateful to just be able to be in the studio and express with your body, and that it starts there and it ends there, and everything else is a bonus. So this sort of childlike curiosity, playfulness that Julia and myself recognized in each other was what we honed in on and what we recognized in each other, and it was just a celebration of two dancers who put their passion first.
Was your history also ballet?
I trained in ballet when I studied in Leeds, called the Northern School of Contemporary Dance. So I did formal conservatoire training for 4 years. My childhood was just a wild ball of energy dancing. And I also did African dance and contemporary dance when I was very young. So with youth dance in the UK, it was just something I was introduced to. And I got to express at a very young age.
Were your parents involved in that inspiration to dance, or was that just something you found on your own?
I think it was. I mean, people say, when do you start dancing? I'm like, I was dancing in the womb. I mean, like, I don't remember a moment where I wasn't dancing. So it's not like this day one and then on. And I think from extremely encouraging parents to allow a child to express itself. And as you can see with any child, a major facet of the expression of themselves is the movement of their body. And we see that with young kids, and that's what they're doing. They're liberating and exploring their physicality as they're going through life.
So your parents never told you, when are you going to grow up?
No, and they never asked me to grow up.
That's
awesome.
Fantastic. I had that same passion and childlike curiosity, but at some point I started hearing that it's time for you to grow up kind of thing. And I never lost it. I'm still, I'm kind of one of those elders who's still holding on to that deep connection to childhood, like from the heart childhood, not the brain. I think in terms of that connection you have with dance, I have that same connection with yoga. And, just a side point, I don't want to derail the conversation here, but I struggled for years of what to call what it is that I discovered through my own practice. And then I came across this word levity. And levity has this, which I'm sure as dancers you understand, this energy, this quality that requires ground. It requires a grounding light energy to create the lightness. But levity in English also has this psychological meaning of playfulness and lightheartedness and humor. And for me, that was perfect. So I've got this word now, levity yoga, that just perfectly holds space for all sorts of possibilities, including humor on a yoga mat, which you don't get much of that, if you've ever been to a yoga class. It can be a pretty serious thing. So anyway, I'm connected to you guys through playfulness.
I want to ask about a video. I saw a recent video, Julia, where you were teaching and you were talking about how people were using their eyes to focus on the spot. And I've also I have been trained in yoga, so that's kind of like my path too. And there's this word drishti. Have you guys heard of it before?
No?
It's
Tell us.
that point that they teach you in order to keep your balance, you need to hold your drishti and you need to like focus your eyes on a certain, well, it's more than your eyes. It's really just like all of you in that one point. But then I love it when you said your balance is not in your eyes, your balance is in between your ears. And I think a lot of times we try to see the truth, see the way, and a lot of times it's unseen. It's something that is just felt because you can't see between your ears, you just feel it. And the way your body movement changed when you were talking about seeing with your eyes versus when you let go and you just started like rolling around doing that awesome thing that you do. How did you find that? Is that something that you learned, or is that something that through practicing you discovered?
Well, Rudy especially very interested in anatomy. So yeah, the balance is connected to the fluid that we have in our ears. But so basically what I was trying to convey to the dancers, to the participants, is that there's so much that sometimes we use our external reality to find our own center. And actually what that means is that we block the movement, or we block the joints in our body that could then be open to receive the movement. And so knowing, like, not having to spot, when you're a dancer and you use the spot and then you turn and you keep spotting in the same place as you turn your head, it does create that sense of like alignment, but at the same time there is an inner alignment, like what you were saying, like the eye, the inner axis, the inner center that you can tap into, especially the balance is in your ears, as in the fluid. So you don't have to use the eyes to grab on the external reality for you to be in balance. It's something more that you find more within. And it's actually very funny because we always say to our dancers, like, you can just fall off. It's okay. You can fall off. We're in the studio, so you can practice new things and play new things and try new things. So it might be that you fall off and it's okay. But then what happens when you fall off is that your body learns something new. So next time that you might be in that place where you might fall off, is actually the body learns so fast they can find a new pathway that you haven't been before. And then you get to surprise yourself. And when you surprise yourself, you also surprise the person who is watching you, or the audience, or the public that's viewing you.
Yeah, I have had similar experiences on a yoga mat. And in particular, this idea of, in a typical yoga practice led by a teacher, there's all these external cues of where to place limbs or how to engage muscle. And it wasn't until I broke my back and then had to literally go back to the beginning and what movement am I capable of doing with a broken back? And just a little history. I got into this situation And I had a doctor, orthopedic surgeon say, okay, here's what I would do. And these are the side effects, not possible side effects. These are the side effects that you're likely to have after the surgery. And the list was so long, I just thought, well, what's the consequence if I don't get the surgery? And that seemed like more of a possibility for me. And that's the path that I took. So that moment of realizing, okay, what's the most basic element to initiate movement? And what I learned with a broken back is just surrendering to gravity. That little bit of release by surrender, by softening, that I can feel gravity pulling places depending on where my body is positioned, in line with gravity or slightly offline with gravity. Those little bits of movement were like big wins for me in the first 2 months or so. And I don't cue like a typical yoga teacher anymore, because gravity is the playground, and let the body have like the body has a mind of its own, so to speak. This idea that gravity and your awareness of balance creates the necessary muscular activity in real time. And I got this realization. This is again a story I haven't told ever before. When I had a departure from the teacher I studied with for 20 years, I was kind of floating in this, well, what do I teach now? And then that I don't have a guru to follow. And a friend of mine knew that I was a little bit depressed, and she said, come on, let's go to Las Vegas. I got tickets to Cirque du Soleil. So here I am with these fourth row from the stage seating, watching Cirque du Soleil. And I remember thinking as a yoga teacher, they're breaking all the rules, they're breaking all the rules of alignment that I learned in yoga. And yet there's a sense of joyful playfulness, there's obviously strength and power. And I could feel that strength and power viscerally in my own body that close. And that was the beginning of realizing that what I was learning from the broken back and that experience of watching those dancers, there was transmission that I was receiving from those dancers into places in my body that now I can access because I'm softer. I'm not engaging, or as most Westerners do, over engaging muscular effort. I'm just letting the body respond as needed. And the one thing that was powerful was this idea in yoga of when you're standing, bending forward to fold at the hip with a flat back going forward. But the Cirque du Soleil dancers, they were letting their head drop, their spine curl, and they were going down, up, and back, curling. And it was just like, that looks better. That energetically was like, oh, that feels good. I wasn't even capable of doing that, but I thought, okay, here's my new inspiration, let's call it, for movement. How can we introduce that fluidity in movement that is sometimes lacking in a typical yoga class?
It's beautiful that you share your story about injury, because I mean, we really myself have both been injured, but while we were training, we have never really been injured since we started Humanhood and our own practice. And I feel like the thing that changes when you're injured is that before you're injured, you kind of like ask your body to do things. I want you to do that, to do this stretch here, move like that, do these steps, stretch your arm like that, more stretch, more strength, more this step. But actually, when you're injured, it's the other way around. You have to listen to your body, because your body's like, no, I'm broken. So you have to start listening. And that state of listening is where I feel like actually you start connecting with the inner teacher, which is wisdom that we have within. And so you find new pathways, new ways to move that are more ergonomic, more efficient, more organic. And so there's plenty of techniques and movement language that has been discovered within the dance world, but also in general, from dancers who were injured. Like Flying Low and Gaga, they were literally injured, not being able to move. And so I feel like there's a whole state of being that you've been put because of course you don't have any other way. You're injured, that's the way it is. The body kind of like puts you in that state where you have to listen, as you call it, like surrender. It's like you have to listen to a new way of doing things. And I love injuries for that, but also touch wood, I don't think that has happened since we created Humanhood, because part of our practice, like the core base of our practice, is connecting and finding that state of listening.
Yeah, I think there is something in the inner teacher's journey that includes this kind of dark night of the soul experience of being, limited, what was previously taken for granted, and then finding a way out of that hole, so to speak. And um, I don't know if before I was injured that I actually had any teacher or precedent for what I ended up doing, mostly through trial and error, to come up with a way to move that created this now different. It's not a technique, but it's just a consciousness, let's call it, of how to use softness to build strength. And this is kind of a little tagline that I use: soft is the new strong, because in all types of relationships, even between two people, I find, that there's this idea that Westerners work hard, play hard, and the one that cracks me up is love hard. And and in my own relationship, loving hard has never quite worked the way I expected it to, and approaching intimacy from a place of softness creates more possibility. So yeah, it is. You don't wish it on your worst enemy, but there is definitely value in being injured. It's just waking up to that fact. How can I, climb out of this temporary inconvenience, which is really a broken back is, for me, was just a temporary inconvenience. It took 12 months of inconvenience to realize, and then another 8 or 9 years to understand the science behind what I experienced. And ironically, after that 10-year period, I had a publisher reach out to me and say, would you write a book about these two terms, gravity and grace? And it was like, okay, I'm ready to write that book. I wouldn't have been ready, a year after breaking my back, or even 5 years after breaking my back. It took 10 years to really create an understanding within myself, and then the simplicity of language to communicate it to students. And it's just, I can just tell watching what you guys do that there's a quality of unspoken, what would you call it? Your bodies are doing the talking, and it's up to the student's nervous system to respond in a way to what they're seeing or feeling in your movement, and then going and looking for it for themselves. Would that be an accurate thing to say?
Hey, quick note. Peter's Inner Teacher Academy is launching soon. If this is resonating with you, head over to innerteacheracademy.com and grab a spot on the wait list. These trainings are intimate and space is limited. So if you want to be first in line, tap the link in the description below and sign up.
You can also see details about my 2025 retreats at some incredible locations around the world, like Iceland, Austria, California, and New Zealand. Attendance at these trainings will count towards in-person hours for the Inner Teacher Academy. And now let's get back to the magic.
Yeah, completely.
Okay, good. Actually, I had a question for you, Rudi. I want to know, what was that point for you where you moved away from following things that you were taught in these dance classes that you were taking to starting to listen to your own body and find your own way?
Yeah, I think I always had that to a certain extent. I mean, I've been kicked out of class before, and I've been told to stand in front of the mirror when I didn't want to stand in front of the mirror, and I just wanted to be behind the piano. Yeah, I think I always inherently knew, and I think similarly for Julia as well, that I think it was our own relationship that we had with our own expression of movement, which was number one. And we could dive into these different techniques or forms, even if it was yoga, or acro yoga, or salsa, or ballet, or contemporary, or certain choreography or another. That it was about what we were discovering within our own bodies. So that it wasn't necessarily like, okay, this is the choreography, and I need to do it. It was like, okay, here's something for me to play with. Here's something for me to play with. What can I discover more about myself and my own body with this template in front of me? But the interesting thing is always going to be breaking structure, not through resistance, and not through challenging or debating what's actually being presented in front of you, but through your own physicality. And I think that's when you just discover more about yourself. I mean, it's two ends of the spectrum, right? It's like the simple state of meditation, if you will, like being single pointedly, as you were talking about earlier, and like just honing in on one particular thing. But then the complete opposite to that is just embracing everything, like literally embracing everything that you're being invited to explore with your physical body. And I think this is something, as we're having these conversations, and Julia and myself are talking more and we're teaching, I think we're coming to discover these things as we're articulating, but they were already innate within us. I don't think it's not something that was like, okay, I have this and I'm going to apply this to movement. It was just something very natural that we ended up doing. And I think that's where the power of the relationship that Julia and myself have with movement, and as that is expressed through our own collaboration with each other, it's just something that we realized was innate in ourselves.
I have similarly realized with yoga that the yoga that I was taught was in a way a very rigid technique with rules and uh, you know rules of alignment, let's call it. And so when you look at an average yoga class of say 20 people, there's 20 different body types in that room. No one has the same body type. And I would imagine the same is true in dance. Like what seems fluid and natural to your body might not feel fluid and natural to someone else coming in with either pre-existing conditions or just genetically different proportions. What I discovered from my teaching is through the experience of healing from the broken back is I found what the yogis call the inner body anatomy. And they call it the subtle body. And here the subtle body is this philosophical architecture of the emotional body, the intellect body, all these other layers of our state of being that are beyond or within the physical shell of the body. These experiences were kind of mapped in the old yoga texts, century old, thousands of years old books that they kind of recorded what they understood, and then translated into English wasn't the greatest. And so what I was learning was mostly intuitive, but then I went back for the writing of my book and I found references to the states of being that I was experiencing by accident, so to speak, articulated in these old books. And then it started to click in. And what this technique that I use to teach now to beginners as well as teachers orients all the cueing towards the inner experience of the body, the breath, the feelings around your heart, around your throat, around your face, these kind of landmarks that the yogis referred to as chakras, which is a very esoteric term, and different schools have different ideas about what the chakras actually are. And I don't even need to use the esoteric understanding of chakras. I just let students focus into these spaces and just to examine if there's space, if there's a freedom of tension in these areas. And if there's not, there's a whole host of movements that I've found that help people soften into these places of numbness or contractions, subconscious contraction. And the beautiful thing for a yoga teacher on teaching students on a yoga mat is that the subtle body is identical for everyone in the room. And I'm curious if the techniques that you use to teach students accommodates this challenge as a yoga teacher, a challenge, and I would imagine as a dance teacher, the fact that your students have limitations that you don't. And how do you approach that? Like, is there a way that you communicate that helps them work within that container of their own body?
Yes, it's like when we started to have our own dance company and have professional dancers coming in as well as teaching other professional dancers. Um, we were very, very interested with the state of being that Rudy and myself had while we were moving. And so we were more guiding the dancer to that state of being and then express himself or herself through that, as opposed to just like doing specific steps. Like we always say that, for example, the first yogi or the first Tai Chi master or the first whatever technique you can envision, he was just someone playing with the body. The Tai Chi was someone just dancing in nature and being inspired, like being such a state of being so open that, it imagine itself being the wind or the sea and so for us, it's more about no. And now we're trying to walk that path from the other extreme. So if I do that certain movements, we'll get to that state of being, right? So it is a circular. You can be that in that state of being, and then create those movements, and then create a technique so people do those movements, and then you connect to that initial state of being that brought that that made that technique possible. So for us now, it's more about guiding individuals to that state where they feel their body can do anything. And I say that not in terms of like I can do a backflip or I can just, bend forwards and put my nose in my toes. It's not about that. It's about this feeling of like I just feel free within my body. I feel free that I can express in my body. And we actually realized that we were doing this with our professional dancers, and they were saying, oh, I kind of like now connect with the passion to move. I can now connect to why I start dancing, like who I am as a person. And then we realized anyone can connect to that. Anyone who has a body can connect to that, And so that's when we started to deliver more like movement sessions for all individuals, not only dancers or trained dancers. Like for us, we call like humans just, cosmic dancers. And that's what we guide.
I
Do,
love
do
what
you
you just said
teach? Oh, sorry.
about I just want to touch on one thing you said about and now I lost it. Come back, come back. That this expression, it made me think like there's sometimes when I'm listening to music and now this feeling starts bubbling up in my body. And I start feeling like I want to express this. And and maybe I need to do the Humanhood training, I don't know how to express it so that it feels like what's inside is being given the space to come out. Like maybe the ways that I know how to dance because of what I've been taught is limiting. It's not allowing me to fully express this thing that's inside that wants to come out.
Well, the true thing is that your body already knows it. So you don't need to know the how because your body knows the how. And the only thing that can breach that is your trust in your body. So I I wouldn't say that you need to know the how because your mind, your conscious mind doesn't need to know the how. Your body knows the how. But the only missing link is to trust that. And that's going into the unknown, not into a place that you've never been before. And that's trusting your body before a past experience or something that you have, you already know that step. So I'm going through that step. But actually here the body is saying, oh, there's another way to express that. Are you trusting that? So I would say that your body knows how. It's just a matter of trusting.
Yeah, I've had that same experience, and I've tried to identify what going into the unknown is and what source do you access? What intelligence do you access when you go beyond what you know? into the unknown. And the term that I came up with is grace. Like when I was using these two terms, gravity and grace, which is ended up being the title of my book. Gravity was this invisible force that we take for granted, and we know that it's scientifically true that this invisible force is what keeps us connected to this mud ball floating through space at 200,000 kilometers a second. When you think about the physics of the Earth, the fact that we can feel stillness on this earth is a miracle in and of itself. So this invisible force that we accept, and then this void, this place of unknown that we also, as humans, we have access to this experience, divinity, spiritual, whatever label you want to call it, where you access intelligence from something bigger or within yourself. And the term in kind of my Catholic upbringing was grace, but I don't use it in the same way. To me, this access to grace is like gravity. It's the attraction of non-physical bodies. And that's what I love about seeing the images of you guys dancing. When I watched over and over again a couple of videos I saw online, there was just this transmission through a screen, a two-dimensional screen, this energy of your bodies meeting my body. And it created joy. Like the connection that I feel watching you guys dance is joy. And that experience just sends vibrations throughout my whole body. What is that? And so this attraction, which when I was researching for my book, I found these quantum scientists, quantum physics, quantum field theory people that believe that attraction is as real as gravity, that the energy of our bodies is communicating, whether we're through a screen, you're on the other side of the planet from me, but there's already this connection. And that for me is what I discovered, like intuitively, trial and error, that these two forces of attraction, one on the physical level, one on the non-physical level, is what inspires and provides for this. And I mean, enlightenment is a big word, but basically it's just this feeling of lightness, this joyful, blissful experience that the body and this connection to the spiritual or the divine comes together. And life is good. Life is good when you have movement and your mind is clear and your heart is open.
I feel like this when it's like we're saying the other day, Rudy and I were speaking to each other. It's like when we dance, when we perform, we are on stage, we cannot talk because we are dancing in front of like thousands of people, but there's so much going on. There's so much energy that we feel, so much that our bodies are saying to each other without using, our mouths to speak. And I love that you said grace this as something more subtle that's going on, behind what we can see or underneath what we can see. And this our dancers always tell us, oh, you must be like, very flexible to dance in a so fluid and soft way. And we are not flexible. Rudy and I are not flexible people. It's like you have these dancers that can just do splits and like that. I haven't done a split for ages. I don't know if I could be able to do it right now, but we are not flexible. But when we dance, it feels like we're super flexible because of our fluidity. But it is this grace, this grace that you're talking about. It is that. It's like sometimes I don't know how to explain it to dance, but like, it's not about how much you can stretch your physicality. Instead is how much you can is how much you can open your physicality to receive this grace or to receive this flow, to receive this movement that is already happened to and through us. Our heart is beating, our hair is growing, there's life, otherwise we'll be dead, right? There's already, everything is in constant change. Now, are you open to receive it? And when you do, not only physically, but also, as you were talking about, is subtle layers of ourselves, as you're receiving into that, then your physicality kind of like softens out and expands and
Exactly.
unfolds.
Yeah, this whole podcast project for Krystal and I has been this wonderful opportunity to connect with people beyond the yoga bubble and to connect with artists like yourself that have taken their craft and expanded, expanded maybe or just created from a source within themselves. And I get excited every time, like this. It's funny when Krystal proposed this idea of a podcast, I was like, oh shit, one more thing to do. But this is now the kind of high point of my schedule, like to meet people like yourself, to listen to what your experiences are and how uh, coherent they are with these experiences that I've had on a yoga mat. And I realize that there are so many ways to approach this, I don't know, ultimate or just the human potential. There's so many paths to get into that full potential of being human. I love your name, the name that you call your company. It's such a perfect uh, word to encapsulate this very expansive idea. And no, I'm really grateful for this opportunity to talk with you guys. And Krystal, thank you for inviting them.
Yeah, I'm just happy to be here too. I have a question for either Julia or Rudy, whoever, which either of you wishes to answer. On your website, you talk about the body being a portal, and I feel that. I resonate with that. And you talk a lot about channeling through your body, which is very provocative and interesting at the same time. So I want to know like what that means to you and why you felt like you wanted to articulate that on your site.
Should I go or you go already? I go. Um, I mean, for us as dancers, I think we Rin and I sometimes love to play with the idea that is our last reincarnation on Earth. And we are like, how amazing is that we chose to be dancers? As this last time we come here on the planet to really play with our body and our, our physical manifestation of our souls. So when, when you're here on Earth, you have a body. And a lot of times the body has been seen as something sinful or something that has limitation, something that limits you as a soul, um, and as a consciousness. And actually, if you really, well, at least what we have learned through dance, but also if you really see all the masters that have been through the earth, is that the body is a door. The body is actually a gift in this earth that you can actually see where is the door to your own soul. So it's not in this cup, it's not in this headphones case, although sometimes we look for that in those things and then we just finish surrounded full of material things. But actually the biggest gift, the biggest abundant gift that we can give to ourselves or that we have been given to ourselves is our body, and it's for free. And the body is this portal that if you start listening to it, you actually receive all the answers. But the main question is, are we making time for it? Are we making time to listen? Or do we need to go somewhere and do something to get somewhere to then, get more of that? Or all these like do that we do that we ask from our body, but actually our body's here waiting patiently to say, whenever you're ready, I'm here. Because wherever we go, the body's there with us. The body, if I'm to fly to US, my body's coming with me. And so the body is always this like, our mind can be in the past, can be in the future, can be anywhere, but actually our body is just localized here and now. It lives in the here and now, in this local existence here on Earth. And so it's always this opportunity to just close our eyes or keep them open, doesn't matter, either one or the other, and connect with the wisdom that resides within. So that's for me the body, right? This kind of like, we see it as something that is finite, the edges of our fingers and the edges of our face, but actually it contains infinity within. Because no matter how deep we go within our body, we can keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, till infinity. And so that's for me, it's portal for us, is the portal.
How do you channel that? What is it that you're channeling? And I mean, maybe there's no answer for this question, but I'm curious. You're sourcing something that's moving through you or coming up from within you, and then how does it manifest out into the physical?
It's quite interesting, this question, because the thing is that so it's not something that is on or off. It's like we say, the dance, the movement, the change, the flow is not like on or off. What is on or off is our awareness of it. And so this movement, or this grace that's giving our life, that allows us to be alive and to use our bodies and to have an awareness and to have ideas and to have, and to live, it's all the time in us. Is us. And so sometimes it's like, okay, I'm gonna I'm feel disconnected. You're not disconnected, you're just not aware of it, but it's always there. Because if it was not all the time on, if the switch was not all the time on, we would be dead. There would be no life in us. And so it is as simple as making the decision to say, okay, I'm connecting to the portal, and I'm just sitting and becoming aware of my presence, my energy, my
You're opening the channels.
well, I'm becoming aware that the channel is open. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly.
I'm the channel, and I'm the energy that's flowing through it. I'm all of it. And sometimes we are like so distracted, right? I feel like, because I was brought up as well, like with not within a extreme Christian family, but my grandma was always saying, like, every Sunday, come to the church, and they speak about demons and devil and the thing, and I was like, I don't want to know none about that. And now I'm kind of like, and I didn't even want to hear the word God, and that's something that Rudy and I never use. And since some years ago, we started using that word, not as of any religion connotation, but as of like, okay, there's something we're feeling, we don't know how to put a name. And actually, when something crazy happens, I'm not calling the universe for help, I actually call God for help. So for me, it's like, okay, connecting within is now something, and dancing is something more than just moving by body. It's actually connecting to God or spirit, or call it as you wish, but it's connecting to this life that is giving me life and is truly who I am.
Yeah, this quality of the infinite, I've spent a lot of time thinking about the infinite nature that we are. And the night sky, looking at galaxies, and now this science of black holes, where these portals that are called black holes in outer space create access to galaxies and universes millions of light years away. That's the science. My experience as a yogi is that inner direction is also like an inner black hole, that when you move your attention inward, you've got, I mean, our bodies, Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief, I don't know if you've ever read that or come across it, but he talks about this galaxy of, I think it's like 40 trillion cells. So we're like, our reality on a physical level is this cooperative community of 40 trillion cells. And his words, the body has created this cooperative government where certain cells specialize in the brain or in the heart or in the eyes, wherever they've specialized to create a survival experience for this whole community. So as a yogi, as we turn our attention inward, we literally start to feel part of that inner galaxy of 40 trillion cells. And the yogis have terms for that, Sanskrit terms for that, like what that experience is. I don't need to know the terms. I just have had that sensation of dissolving and even watching the physical body, elsewhere, separating slightly. What is that, and how is that my understanding now? And it doesn't. What it does for me is it makes me feel connected. That's you said it, kind of this simultaneous surrender and then connectedness to everything. I feel that all the time, especially at the end of my yoga practice, when I'm laying in the final pose, which is ironically called corpse pose, shavasana, where um, I lose track of personality. I lose track of external surroundings. I lose track of time. All those boundaries that bind me are gone. And that space in corpse at the end of a yoga class is the science that I found writing the book. In that space, the subconscious mind is vulnerable to reprogramming. So if you're working with an addiction or you're working with certain mental conditions that create limitation, that in that deep state, your sensitivity to the subconscious you have access to, where dwelling, using now the conscious part of the mind to dwell towards certain emotions, joy being one of them, gratitude being another one of them. If you can hold that simultaneously in that space, you have the potential. This is how hypnosis works. You have the potential to change those patterns in your life that create resistance or limitation. And that, again, listening to you guys talk about dance, it's the same on a yoga mat. Like, you stumble, literally, probably for the first time, you stumble into these experiences without really understanding. And then if you practice regularly, you start to see the continuity of that experience. And that's been my experience, that it's not rocket science. It's just a little bit of guidance, like having someone like this podcast for me is connecting with others to compare notes. Like, I have my notebook of how to help students access this state that I've stumbled into. But it's really it's a powerful framework, a powerful context to go through life with.
Mm.
And yeah, especially the last 5 years. The last 5 years have been really making people question where to place authority. And I know for myself, this idea of uh, looking within is the only place where I feel truly trustful and safe in a way. Like, how do I connect to that in situations that I find challenging? And that's a work in progress. That's not something that, I mean, I have a teenage daughter at home, like, she's my guru right now. Like, she's pushing buttons without even trying to push buttons. And that for me is a practice in holding space for these uh, pushes and pulls that life tends to show up. It's easy to be spiritual on a mountaintop, It's a whole different story in the house of a teenager.
Indeed.
There's something that we always say is that get so lost in the act that the act becomes the art. And for me, this sentence is about doing whatever it is that you do. Either you're listening to your body, either you're breathing, either you're moving your eyelids, either you're walking. Just do it fully with the whole of your being. A lot of times we do things like fractionated, like our mind is thinking something and then we're feeling something else, but then we end up saying something else or doing something else, and that's where we create so much like incoherence. And yeah, get so lost in the act that the act becomes the art. Means like bringing the full or the whole of you into whatever it is you are doing or experiencing right here, right now.
Yeah. The science behind what you just said is a neurological state known as the zone. You're in the zone. And it's a certain gamma is the brainwave state. And it's that it is a recent discovery within the last 10 years that they find this gamma brainwave state. And it's characterized by deep love of what act you're doing. And that's what sets it apart. And you find it in peak dancers, peak athletes, peak yogis, these people that have taken their craft to the edge of possibility and maybe a little bit beyond. Yeah, that to me is it's a wonderful place to be, and it's elusive as well. It's not something that's like permanent. I mean, maybe in some people it's permanent, but for me, it's just kind of always in and sometimes out and sometimes back in and sometimes out.
It's like those floaters in the eye, like if you just look forward, you see the floater, you try to chase the floater and it just like goes away.
Elusive. Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. But not quite the same.
But it's a paradox of life, right? When you're looking for something, then you're looking for something, you're not in it.
Exactly.
It's the whole point of like just being the fullness of it there. But I think at the same time, as dancers, we learn to appreciate, the yin yang quality of this life. The yin yang symbol is not just like a static thing, it's actually a symbol that describes motion. It's a motion, it's a spiral, it's a vortex, like our last piece, our last production is called Vortex. And so it is that motion that without these waves of experiencing it and then experience something else, that without those ones, then we cannot really experience none of it. In a sense, we cannot know what we are experiencing. And so it's also like embracing this motion of like, now it's here, now it's not here. But because it's not here, then I'm grateful, because then I will be able to feel when it's here, because I'm able to feel its absence. So in a way, it's like, the yin is giving life to the yang, and the yang is giving life to the yin. Without each other, none of those would exist. So that has helped me to like, that has helped me to release the need to get somewhere. The need to get into that state, and actually just know that it's the other face of the same coin.
Yeah,
I
I
have a
like that.
selfish question that I really need to ask, because what would you tell someone? And maybe there's somebody, one of our listeners has the same question. Maybe they've gone through the same thing. There was one afternoon, I've done this twice, but there was one afternoon where I really messed up my toe badly. Like I really let go and I was like, I'm going to give it my all. And I expressed myself, and then I did a turn and I jumped in the air and I landed on my toe and it went and I broke it. And it's fine now. There's not much you can do other than just like, put it in the right spot and pray that it goes back together and it's fine. But now there's this fear of like, I can't do that again because I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to break it. So how do you overcome those fears, or how do you approach when someone has tried to go there and they've hurt themselves in the process?
It's a tough question, really, because it's always going to be subject to the individual. I'm a 1% battery, by the way, so I might drop out into superposition in a moment.
Okay.
Just leap into life. I think that would always be my advice. I mean, it's not really going to stop you. Think about a child walking. So the child's crawling, and then it walks, and then it falls over, and then what? Because it fell over once, it's like, now this walking thing, I'm just not going to do it anymore. You have to keep walking until I keep falling over until you've mastered this balancing fall, controlled fall, which is called walking. Same way riding a bike. You take the stabilizers off and you fall over. That's it once, and then you're like, no, I grazed my arm, I'm not doing it anymore. And then you as a child, you go into it. So I think it's just this willingness to fall over, a willingness to be humble enough to look silly, like I keep telling people every time, like, look silly. Don't be afraid to look silly. You're going to learn something new from that. And just trusting, because, you know, you'll have the process of healing, which, as we've spoken about earlier on, you'll learn something in that process whilst you're healing. So it's beneficial that you broke your toe. You might not know in the moment, but you might find out years later or weeks later or months later. And that this childlike mentality is the thing that's if you really hone into it, it's going to push you back into that reality again and again and again. So some music will come on, and Krystal, bet 100% you're going to do the same thing. You're going to do the same thing, and you're not going to be thinking about your toe, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, I think it's probably the word that comes closest to it is spontaneity. And the more you can be spontaneous with life and your actions, the more you'll feel liberated in the expression of your body, particularly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would add to that, that's brilliant, Rudi, that you may learn in the process from healing that there's a different way to do what you did. And that different way is different, but it brings the same quality of joy to your life that doing the original. And it brings to mind something that my teacher used to tell me when I was a beginner, and it used to piss me off, to be honest, is don't get attached to your likes and your dislikes. And I didn't really understand the wisdom in that statement. To me, there's infinite possibilities. And you explored one possibility that at the moment of that experience, it broke your toe. As you recover, as you heal, and you continue a type of practice that builds your strength, builds your confidence, builds everything back up. My experience with that state, breaking a back, is, am I going to, do what I did before I broke my back when I was 30 years old? Probably not, but I've learned how to do things in, a 69-year-old body that still feels enlightening. It still feels joyous. It still feels amazing. And I'm happy. I'm not happy. I'm content with that. There's a quality of contentment that, you lose that attachment to this particular moment in time.
And I think just something I'll add on top of that, as far as injury is concerned, I think what you gain is wisdom. You just gain wisdom. I mean, it was Thomas Hannes Somatics was talking about the fact that as you get older, you should just become wiser with your body, and your body should become more graceful. But because you're wise, so you're not the 13-year-old like throwing things in the air and running up and down stairs. You don't need to run up the stairs. You've got plenty of time. You're wise. You take your stride, you take it easy, but you have a sense of grace and elegance in your physicality because you know where you're pushing the boundaries and where you don't need to.
That sounds like a pretty good way to wrap this up. What do you think, Krystal?
It does, but I want more. So hopefully we'll do a part 2. You guys down for a part 2 later on?
Yeah,
I'm down.
great.
All right.
Yeah, where are you guys based?
Between Barcelona and Birmingham. So
Right. Fantastic. Well, it's been a pleasure. I
Yes.
kind of, this is sounding like a broken record. Many of our guests, I'm finishing with this same quality of presence and excitement from our conversation. And I hope you listeners out there are feeling the same. We look forward to seeing you guys again.
thank you so much. Thank you for the invite. Yeah, Christian, we'll be back.
Great.
Okay. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much, guys.
That's it for this episode. Be well and stay open to the teacher within. If you've enjoyed our time together, follow or subscribe and stay tuned for upcoming chats you don't want to miss.